Welcome to Museum Archipelago. I'm Ian Elsner. Museum Archipelago is your audio guide through the landscape of museums. Each episode is never longer than 15 minutes. So let's get started. Even before I started working in the museum field, I was thinking about the future museum at the Apollo 11 landing site at Tranquility Base on the moon.
4 forward, drift into the right a little. Down a half. 30 seconds. Forward, drift.
The site is special. No matter how the human experiment turns out, the site will represent the first step off Earth. Life will always go as far as it can, and here, on the moon, is evidence of that spirit.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
On the moon right now is a pile of historical artifacts. How should we treat this historic site? What will it have to say to future visitors? These are questions which should be answered in the next 50 years. And these are questions I hope I can help answer.
6, 5, port stage, engine arm ascent, proceed.
When Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong blasted off from the moon, they left behind what they couldn't take back with them. They left behind the lower half of the lunar module, which served as a launch pad to the top half. They left behind the American flag, which is predominantly featured in our collective imagination of the landing site. It was probably knocked over by the force of the liftoff. They also left behind footprints. All of the footprints in the delicate powder-like dust of the lunar surface are still there. There's no wind on the moon, nothing to disturb these first steps. If people are interested in seeing Plymouth Rock, and I'm not actually sure that they are, this will blow them away. So it's crucial that the site is preserved. No rover tracks should cross the site. No photographer should step over the footprints to try and get a better shot. Many museum artifacts that we enjoy today have been ripped from their context. The Elgin marbles, the Rosetta Stone. Here, on the moon, are the artifacts in context undisturbed. We have the chance to preserve them in their original state. Think about the Titanic. The site of the enormous ship is a mile underneath the Atlantic. Tremendous effort has been made to salvage parts of the site and bring artifacts up from the deep. As a result, artifacts are scattered in museums around the world. A section of hull, a flag, a clock. But the difference is that the Titanic is rotting. Every decade, there is less of the ship left to preserve. In 100 years, the wreck will be completely gone, and there will be no artifacts left except the ones we have salvaged. The moon is different. Untouched, Tranquility Base will look exactly the same in 100 years. I could imagine efforts being made to salvage the American flag and place it in a Smithsonian on the Earth. Even though more people today would see these artifacts on Earth, I see a longer-term benefit of the complete site lasting far into the future as more and more people visit the moon. In 2001, NASA created a set of recommendations about lunar preservation. For Tranquility Base, these recommendations ask that any visitor, robotic or human, stay at least 75 meters from the lander. NASA's recommendations have no legal force, but it's a good first step. The site isn't that big. Unlike later missions, which used a lunar rover to travel kilometers away from the landing site, the 2 Apollo 11 astronauts stayed within view of their only way home the entire mission. The site covers an area of about 1 city block. That is the perfect scale for an observation deck, maybe 1 story high, that provides a sweeping view of the lander and the footprints. When I imagine the museum at the site, I see it ending with this observation deck. The museum leading up to the observation deck would serve as exhibit space about the mission. Does the exhibit need to focus on the space race, or can it just be about this single mission itself? I go back and forth in my own head all the time. The visitors to Tranquility Base, people who are alive now, will have also made the same journey as the Apollo 11 astronauts. For the museum to work at all, these trips must be routine. But the Apollo 11 mission was anything but routine. So many things had to go right. So many people had to dedicate a decade of their lives to the project. I'd like to dedicate a decade of my life to the continuing education of that project. It is important to have a plan now, to make sure that the site is preserved during the crucial experimental time between no moon travel and routine moon travel. And when the time is right, the historic site will open, and welcome visitors to experience a part of human history. This has been Museum Archipelago. We hope you enjoyed your visit. Notes on this episode can be found at museumarchipelago.com. Next time, bring a friend.